I know so many people who've been renting for the last 10 years and they don't end up leaving Dubai and they just carry on renting year after year after year. Today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest decisions people have to make, which is whether to buy or rent a property. Okay, so what exactly are the advantages of renting? Well, if you first move to Dubai, it gives you lots of flexibility. One, you don't even know the area you want to stay in Dubai. And two, you don't even know if you're going to like Dubai itself. So when you first move to Dubai, it gives you a chance to discover what areas you like, which areas you don't like. For example, you might move to one area and think this is going to be the area you live in. And then you find after commuting for 2 months in the traffic, nope, this isn't for me and I don't want to live here. So renting is a very good option to allow you to discover Dubai itself. Also, renting is a lot more affordable in the short term. For example, you don't need to put down any massive deposits down. If you're on a budget, you're going to be looking to rent. Probably the biggest advantage of renting, it's for flexibility. You probably think you're only going to be here for 2 years and then you're going to leave after that. So if you're renting, it gives you that flexibility. If I wanted to, for example, pack my bags and leave, I could with very little hassle, whereas if I bought a house, it's a lot harder. Okay, so what exactly are the advantages of buying? So the first advantage would be stability. If you know you're going to be here for the next 10 years and want to raise a family or even have a young family, having the stability of having one property, which is your own, is definitely worth it, especially if you can afford it. It makes no sense to rent if you're going to be here for a long time. That then brings me on to my next point, which is the emotional aspect. Knowing it's your own home and you can decorate it and you don't need to worry about being kicked out because a landlord wants to sell it, and you don't need to ask landlord's approvals for renovations, etc. You can't really put a price on that. Knowing it's your own home, you can do what you want. That is a very, very large benefit, especially if you've got a young family. And another advantage is the financial aspect. If you know you're going to be in Dubai for the next 10 years, for example, it makes complete financial sense to buy your own property, especially as rents are rising so much. I know so many people who've been renting for the last 10 years and they don't end up leaving Dubai and they just carry on renting year after year after year. And when you do the calculations, it definitely makes a lot more sense to buy your own property. So you can actually go onto Property Finder and do a buying versus renting calculator. So if you look here, you can type in the amount, the rental amount, and it will give you a breakdown of buying versus renting. However, like we said earlier, there's also the emotional aspect. So if you're going to be here with a family for a long time, it's probably worth buying. The disadvantage of renting is it may not be cost effective in the long term. If you're going to be living here for 10 years, any rent money you pay is completely down the drain. Whereas if you buy a property, you're putting that money into the property and slowly you're going to build up equity. Even if a property goes down in value, you've still got some of that equity there. Another disadvantage is you don't have complete freedom of your property when you rent. If I wanted to decorate this apartment, paint the walls, redo the kitchen, I'm going to have to ask the landlord. Also, I know lots of people over the last couple of years who've been kicked out their apartments because the landlord wants to sell the property, so I don't have that stability by renting. So what are some of the disadvantages of buying? So if you add in all the costs, it can be very, very expensive in the short term. For example, you've got the down payment, the DLD costs, the agency fees, the mortgage fees, admin fees. The amount of fees goes on and on and on. Unless you've got a very healthy amount of cash available to deposit, it's very, very expensive. Also, buying a property is a lot more responsible. If I wanted to, I can end my tenancy contract, pack my bags and move to Singapore. If I bought a property, I couldn't just do that on a whim. I would have to go through the process of selling. That in itself can be very, very stressful. Also, what you've got to remember, any maintenance costs, repair works, that's borne by you. And the final disadvantage of buying a property, it's the opportunity cost of capital. If you've got that large amount of capital for the down payment and all the transfer fees, that's a lot of money. If you put that money into a property, it's going straight into a property which you're going to live in, which has merit in itself, but you can't put that money to work in other areas like stocks or crypto if you're risky. Especially if you buy at the very, very top of the market, You might be in a situation where you go to sell, where the property is actually worth less than you paid for it. That often happens in Dubai because there's an abundance of land. Okay, so to summarize, should you buy or rent a property? First of all, it's down to your own personal circumstances, because if you can't afford to buy a property, obviously you're gonna have to rent. Also, it's not worth financially crippling yourself on mortgage payments and down payments if you can't really afford to live there. You've also got to look at what stage of life you're at. I want the flexibility of renting where I can pack my bags up and move at a moment's notice. Whereas if you're someone who's just moving to Dubai and you have a young family, for example, one, the prices of rents are so high at the moment, and two, if you know you're going to be here for about the next 10 years, it makes complete sense to stay put in one property, call it your own home, and have the safety of it being a place where your family can grow up in, decorate it as you please, and not have to worry about any landlords evicting you. So that's it for today. If you found the video useful, please like and subscribe.